All right, we got action. All right, y'all, we live.
It's the $1 trillion goddess, baby.
Hey, peace, world peace. Welcome or welcome back to Goddess Dawn Speaks, aka the $1 trillion goddess, baby. Back live on Thursday night, child, August 20th. And I'm here especially to talk about Karmelo Anthony's new trial hearing that went down today in McKinney, Texas, I believe, or Collins, Texas. And I'm going to go through the live tweets because some shit was going down in that damn hearing today. Now, I am going to come back, of course, to talk about what happened in day 4 of Tupac's trial. We got to get justice for Tupac. Now, I don't know if Keefe D is the right one, baby, but right now he is the one literally facing life in prison for killing Tupac or for being responsible or being behind the death. But I'll get back to that one later on. Right now, we're focusing on Mr. Karmelo Anthony. Okay. Now, I don't think I'm going to play music tonight. We're just going to get right on into things. You ready, Wow Wang? I appreciate you. Love Queen. Looked like she was here. I set this up earlier, but yeah. I don't know if people are getting notifications and whatnot. Thank you, Love Queen. Good vibes only. Love that. Yeah. So what I'm doing today is, or tonight, is going through, like I said, the live tweets of what went down in court today. Let me pull up a good little picture of everybody. So we got the Metcalf twins. Their parents are up above them on the picture. Karmelo Anthony in the middle. And then that's him with his girlfriend who plays an interesting role in today's proceedings. Okay, so let's get on into it. Now, I'm getting my information from Docket Diva on X, a Black lady whose tweets I actually admire. She's very clear, clean cut, and factual about what she puts out there. And she's at the courthouse. So, of course, we're way late tonight about for covering this, but 12 hours ago is what X is saying. She said the hearing in the Karmelo Anthony case is about to start. Attorney Russell Wilson is set up to give opening statements. Stay locked in with the Docket Diva. Now, remember, this is Karmelo Anthony's new legal team he's working with here. And his previous lawyer, his trial lawyer, is actually going to be taking the stand, which is crazy. But that's really, this whole trial is crazy. So Russell Wilson opened, okay, by telling the court he will introduce 40 exhibits. He flagged that some evidence relevant to the new trial motion hasn't been turned over yet. So it isn't part of today's hearing. His second major argument centers on an off-the-record agreement between the prosecution and the defense. That's how he's leaning on you. That's how he's now leaning on as grounds for relief. He also argued that Karmelo had no hearings at all before jury selection, characterizing Judge Roach's handling of the case as a shadow docket, proceedings that ran with zero public visibility, starting essentially the moment Karmelo was indicted. And that sounds hella shady to me. Wilson, again, Karmelo's defense attorney, says that the June gentleman's agreement also kept character information about Austin and Hunter Metcalf out of the courtroom. He says Anthony's former legal team similarly kept potentially damaging information about Anthony out of the trial, including allegations of aggressive behavior and text messages referencing a knife. Okay. Now, you know, we don't play those games. I'm looking at my chat. There's no Karmelo slander over here, sir, or female or woman. But I know my mods got this handled right, so I'm not going to worry about it. I know my mods are on it, right, mods? All right. So, in case you're coming in late, we're going over today's hearing. Karmelo Anthony had a hearing today in hopes of getting a new trial. Now, if he gets deemed a new trial, I think he gets to go home to get ready for the trial. I don't think they keep him if they deem that this trial gets overturned. Okay, JP Sportsman is in here trolling. Are we letting that happen? Where are my mods at? Show me some bells. Let me know you here and listening. Otherwise, I'm going to have to interrupt what I'm doing. It's fine to comment, but you're going to be respectful. Okay? We're not going to slander Karmelo. Thank you. As I was saying, so he talked about, again, and this is Karmelo's attorney bringing this up. He's letting us know, look, there's things on Metcalf's side and there's things on Karmelo's side as well. But this gentleman's agreement hid that from the jury. All of this was hidden from the trial. The defense argues the court violated Karmelo Anthony's right to a public trial by improperly closing the courtroom or conducting proceedings privately without meeting the legal requirements for doing so. She said that this is considered a Waller violation. This is considered a Waller violation. If the court finds that Anthony's constitutional right to a public trial was violated, the error would require his conviction to be reversed and a new trial ordered, even without showing that the courtroom closure impacted the verdict. Now, the courtroom closure, I don't know if they're going to talk about it here, but basically it's why the judge was recused yesterday. Judge Roach was recused. Yeah. Get your ass up out of here. Because mostly that post-verdict interview that he did, where he basically said, yeah, the jury got it right. Now, if there's an appeal that's pending and they're going to fight this, you're overseeing this as the judge. You can't come out here and be like, oh, the jury got it right. That means your mind is made up. You're not open to new, any new information or anything that could possibly turn this the other way. And that's just very unfair. So she said, when will they turn over the other evidence? I'm curious. She's asking. Let's see. As far as allegedly violating Anthony's rights, Wilson is focusing on the public's right to observe the trial. He argues that an overflow room was initially provided during the trial for members of the public who couldn't fit into the courtroom, but that arrangement was later eliminated. Wilson says he's unaware of another criminal case in the U.S. where an overflow room was established for the public and then removed during trial. State prosecutor Bill Werski, he's responding to Wilson's claims, emphasizing what he describes as the unprecedented security concerns surrounding Karmelo Anthony's trial. He says the gentleman's agreement and security measures affecting public access were discussed and agreed to by Anthony and his trial lawyers. Now, when he says by Anthony first, I don't know that Karmelo was involved. I had read that these little backdoor gentleman handshake agreements they were having in the judge's chambers, Karmelo Anthony was not a part of, and they had agreed to keep him out of it, which is crazy. Wow, Wayne, you working? I see you. Love Queen, what's going on? We had a troll up in here, but I see why Wayne got it handled. So continuing to discuss today's hearing for Karmelo Anthony to get a new trial. Okay, he had a hearing today. They're actually going to continue this hearing tomorrow. So 9 o'clock in the morning Central Time. So talking about, and the time is ticking on this for Karmelo, because I'm told, I read that he has until the 24th of August to get a new trial signed off on by the judge. Otherwise, It's a no. He had a certain amount of days to get this done. And now here we are at the very precipice of the deadline. And the judge is like, oh, yeah, we can take our time. We have till Friday. Well, the 24th, I think, is Monday. So we don't really have that much time. So with that being said, let's continue on what happened in court today. So now the prosecutor is up and he's saying he's, stressing that the measures, security measures regarding, the lack of access to people and whatnot were put into place to protect Anthony's rights and that the defense agreed to them. Again, he's continuing to say, well, that first trial lawyer, he agreed to it. Now, I wonder if he's going to discuss how him and the first trial lawyer, Mr. Howard, were buddies prior to this trial. They were even colleagues, having the same office, working out of the same office, private office, okay, together. They worked together, I think, even in the DA's office before. But they're friends and colleagues and have been for years. So this gentleman's agreement stinks of what I get is Howard being subservient to the state prosecutor, Bill Werski. Bill Werski seems like the alpha male in the situation, while Howard just seemed to kowtow to everything Bill Werski put in front of him. That's the sense I got. I got that during the first trial. Okay, so now Austin Metcalf's mother is reportedly in tears as Werski describes the security threats surrounding her family before the trial. He says there was nearly a shooting at the Metcalf's home and that the family was doxxed multiple times. Werski says the case presented an unprecedented threat environment for prosecutors, particularly because of people he described as influencers and content creators who, in his words, try to monetize murder. Werski, the prosecutor, also highlighted a text that Karmelo Anthony allegedly sent that morning saying that he was low-key on the verge. Emphasizing that statement, he further references messages in which Anthony allegedly threatened his ex-girlfriend with a knife and told her, when I stab somebody, I'm going to lick the blood off the blade, in quotes. This is what he's telling the judge and the public. Werski argues that every single decision challenged by the defense was made with the consent of Anthony's trial attorneys. He says immediately after they got a verdict, they switched lawyers. So he's like, yeah, they got the verdict they didn't want, and now they switch lawyers. It's not unusual to switch attorneys once you lose a trial and you're going to try to appeal it. He said also, please don't let anybody think we don't know what a Waller is. He says the defense agreed to all this open court noise and explains that there are multiple off-the-record conversations that take place because, quote, that's just the way we do business in Texas, end quote. Woo, child, there's so much code in this man's speak. Werski describes, in quotes, motivated and very sophisticated attacks surrounding the case, saying prosecutors could not initially put the case file on Odyssey. He says immediately the threats started, including swatting and doxing. He says prosecutors were getting called racist for prosecuting the case, while also getting called woke for not seeking the death penalty. Referring to the black judge who reduced Anthony's bond, Werski says she got the most vile racist threats you can imagine. This is the first case we've been involved in where the threat environment was like this, he says. On influencers covering the case, Werski says, all they try to do is monetize murder. They monetize misinformation. I can tell you lawyers on both sides were worried about their lives in this case, Werski says. He also says prosecutors were concerned that the intense attention could put Anthony in danger. He said, we were afraid that some racist would come into town and take this young man's life. Do you really think they needed to come from outside of the town to do this? Really, Werski? All right, so moving on to Karmelo. I'm going to put his girlfriend up here because she comes into play. Isis Laz. The twins are bullies because they learn to be from their parents. Oh, yeah. I have a message from Mr. Metcalf from yesterday, actually. He was talking a bunch of shit. We're going to play that. in a bit. But yeah, what's going on? Thank you for the bells. So, the same ex-girlfriend, Valeria, who prosecutors say reported Karmelo Anthony to school officials for allegedly stalking her after their breakup, is also the person who later wrote on TikTok when he was found guilty. Hold your head high, my sweet boy. She continued, you're not alone. We're fighting for you always. According to prosecutors, just 1 hour after Valeria's alleged report to school officials, Austin Metcalf was fatally stabbed. Now, I hadn't read that part yet, but she goes on to say, hearing all this, you can still argue that Anthony's rights were violated. The alleged evidence is one issue. Whether proper constitutional and procedural safeguards were followed is another. One does not automatically cancel out the other. So the prosecutor says, we have text messages of Karmelo fantasizing about stabbing someone and licking the blood off the blade. Arguably, one of the biggest bombshells from today's Karmelo Anthony hearing. He said, this is what he's saying, the prosecutor. The gentleman's agreement was reportedly intended to keep character evidence about both Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf out of the June trial. So the question is, was keeping this evidence out part of the reason Anthony's trial attorney agreed to the arrangement? We don't know that yet, but what prosecutors revealed today makes that an important question. Prosecutors are emphasizing the timing between Anthony's ex-girlfriend, Valeria, reporting him to school officials and the stabbing of Austin Metcalf. According to Worski, Valeria, a school official that morning, I guess it spoke to, that she had broken up with Anthony and that he was allegedly stalking her. About an hour later, prosecutors say Anthony stabbed Austin at the track meet. Now, this is the first time, mind you, this is brought to any public record. Worski also alleges that Anthony had a history of violence and was obsessed with starting fights, in quotes. He further said that Anthony had previously been taken to LSU to attend a special program at LSU for children with violent behavior. During his opening statement, Anthony's attorney, Russell Wilson, outlined what the defense says were errors during the murder trial. Wilson described that what he called a shadow docket, saying the parties are discussing case issues and that everything was done off the record at an astonishing clip. He said the agreement at issue was never put in writing. They didn't reduce the agreement to writing. It was all oral. So that they did all this backdoor stuff with the judge and didn't have nothing on the record, which is crazy. It's pretty insane, actually. Wilson argued that the agreement kept character information about both sides out of the trial, saying, so it kept out character information about Austin Metcalf and his brother Hunter Metcalf, and it left out character information about Karmelo Anthony. This was Anthony's attorney saying this. He said the defense will argue that through the record, through trial testimony, through voir dire, information that could have been used was kept out, including aggressive information about other people and racial animosity. Wilson also argued that the punishment phase was improperly limited, saying the punishment hearing is dramatically truncated and there's no punishment evidence at all. Now, mind you, they're fighting for a new trial, so he's got to put out all the stops. Dr. Diva said that the prosecutor keeps bringing up influencers. She said they got on his nerves real bad. Prosecutor Bill Worski is calling out influencers again, saying some tried to get media credentials for Karmelo Anthony's trial. He says some of his supporters, who are also influencers, were vetted, including one person sitting in the courtroom today, according to Worski, have been arrested 19 times for making bomb threats. Worski says the individual claimed to be affiliated with the North Carolina beat. All right, so now we're going to have a witness come up. It's like I said, all I heard, the prosecutor lied about breaking up with his girlfriend. She's still with him. Yeah, I heard she was with the parents in the courtroom, sitting next with the parents. So she needs to get on the stand. So the first witness, though, is Derek Jackson, a former Collin County Public Information Officer who served as the Government Information Coordinator. He was involved in media planning and logistics surrounding Karmelo Anthony's murder trial. Jackson testified that he handled press releases for the DA's office, among other responsibilities, and was involved in planning for the trial, including logistics, media operations, and the overall courtroom atmosphere. He was terminated by Collin County on May 13th, about a month before the trial. Jackson said the defense and Karmelo Anthony were not present for the meetings where trial logistics and media access were discussed. One issue discussed during those meetings was an overflow courtroom. Jackson testified that officials worked to make sure the video and audio feeds would function in the ceremonial courtroom in case it was needed. But when Judge Roach learned about the work being done on an overflow room, Jackson said the judge told them he did not know where the idea came from, that there would not be an overflow room for the case itself. Jackson said the judge told them he did not know where the idea came from and that there would not be an overflow room for the case itself. Okay. Jackson confirmed that the defense was not involved in the meetings concerning the logistics of the trial or how publicly accessible the proceedings would be. He also admitted that he provided trial scheduling information to a social media influencer who was not authorized to receive it. The information had not yet been released publicly. When prosecutor Bill Werski learned about it, Jackson said he was not happy and gave him a tongue lashing. Jackson was later informed that he would be suspended. Jackson testified that he met with Judge Roach in his chambers. He described the meeting as about 6 minutes of him letting me have it, including a warning that he would be held in contempt of court and sentenced to 6 months in jail. Jackson was then served with a termination letter from Collin County. During questioning, the defense showed Jackson the gag order, which states that hearing schedules were among the communications permitted to be released to the media. The prosecution objected, arguing that Jackson did not simply release a hearing schedule. Instead, prosecutors said he released the first 4 days of the trial schedule, which was not covered by the permitted communications. During cross-examination, Jackson confirmed that he was responsible for handling media requests. The vetting of media became a significant part of the questioning. Jackson acknowledged that he understood the difference between Chapter 11 and the North Carolina beat. He also agreed that there were quite a few bad actors attempting to gain access and disrupt the trial. When asked whether he had received threats, Jackson said he knew his name was very much on social media and acknowledged being aware of serious threats. The prosecution was also established that the DA's office had designed an attorney to ensure the defense agreed with the logistical arrangements being made during the pretrial period. Jackson agreed that releasing the trial schedule would have been acceptable in another case. The defense then questioned why, if the threats were serious enough to justify restricting access to the trial and limiting public access to pretrial hearings, there had not been arrests related to those threats. That's a good question, actually. Really good question. For clarity, she's saying Karmelo Anthony's defense is arguing that his constitutional right to a public trial was violated because access to the proceeding was restricted. Prosecutors are pushing back, saying restrictions were necessary because of death threats, doxing, and disruptive behavior from some influencers who were trying to gain access to the courtroom trial. All right. So she said that Karmelo Anthony, regarding the reason some of this evidence is only coming to light now, is because of the gentleman's agreement that both sides acknowledged exists. existed. Under that agreement, the prosecution and defense agreed that certain character evidence from both sides would not be introduced at trial. The court went to lunch at this point. Okay, and the defense is going to be back up in a second. I want to pull up this lady who was in court, though. Let me see. Pull up this lady who was in court because she gave some background on some stuff about the prosecutor. I think this was the channel. Let's see.
N word with the A, they use the hard R. So remember, the order came out, 9 legacy media, 15 family members per side, 27 because I don't think he had the legal argument to come back on those Waller findings. This feed stuff together, they say when they first started doing the feed, and like what happened, how you failed to do what you're supposed to do. That's what it sounds like in your room. And it seems like it was about 8 people in this room. This Toby thought he was following the law, and they just pull out your file and it'd be numbered with these sticky numbers on. Also had the option of live feed, but we never got a request.
Okay.
2 years of experience.
Her channel is The Fit Lawyer.
And called the case. So he put the case name on the record. He then calls in Russell Schaefer, who's the public information officer right now that's in place handling media requests, getting information out to the public, update that website. That's Russell Schaefer. He actually emailed me this morning, or like yesterday, sent me orders because I filled out a media request to get information about these hearings and try to get on the media list. But they only are letting like news stations come in. But one day. So he brought him inside, and so the judge says on the record, he says, yesterday the defense filed a motion asking me to live stream this hearing and to have an overflow room because we didn't know who the judge was going to be until after the motion to recuse and the administrative judge appointed someone new. So once that judge was appointed, they then asked that judge to, grant the overflow, open the courtroom, do the live stream. Well, they did a proposed order that already had the live streaming is in paragraph 7 of this order. Well, what the judge did was he scratched that out, initialed it, and then signed the order. So that meant everything they asked for, they got, is such as the overflow room with the video and audio feed, but they didn't get a live stream to the public. And so the judge says, I denied the request for the live stream to the public, and I am bringing in Russell Schaefer, the public information officer, to put on the record why it wasn't a possibility. He brings Russell in. He swears him in, puts him under oath, and then Russell testifies about why. He just was standing up. He didn't even sit down because it was going to be a quick statement. But he basically said that the request came yesterday and that in order to set up a live stream, they need 2 weeks notice. So that was the reason they couldn't live and kind of fire back, right? Because they asked some questions like, you've known about this hearing for a while. He's like, yeah, but I never had a request for a live stream. So I didn't have anything to.
That sounds very sketchy considering, they just finished a high profile media.
His volume is hella low. Okay, well, she's talking about some of the logistical stuff that went on today. Let me see if I can move ahead.
It was, but all of the bad stuff about Austin, that was on a document today that the defense had filed in the trial that was kept out. Well, not kept out, it was this shadow docket. So we're going to get into that. But that was part of the things that were in the exhibits today. So those things were admitted.
That would look nice on the big screen.
Yeah, right. It did. They were blowing it out, blowing it up, showing us everything. So I'm going to get into that. And so Russell Wilson says, and I say Bill Werski was really on one today. Like he was very honorary. Like he just
That's the prosecutor, Bill Werski.
The cuff comments talking about creators in the. And I told you all that Russell was trying to get his AV system to work, trying to get the PowerPoint to work. He says, Judge, I feel like PowerPoints are easier. And then Bill Werski stands up, object to that statement, Judge, that PowerPoints make it easier to understand. Like, so he was already just not in a good mood today. And it just showed throughout the entire day. Towards the end, we all thought he was crying at one point, and I'm going to tell you about that part, but it really sounded like he was getting Bill Werski got choked up and cried when Mike Howard was on the stand, and I'm going to come to that. Okay, so if you all recall, when this motion for new trial was filed, July, I believe 7th, the transcript and the entire case record was in the judge's office, right? The transcript hadn't even been transcribed at that point. The case record, the attorneys couldn't review unless they were in the judge's office. The judge wouldn't let them take anything out from the case file unless they agreed to sign, not like, what was it, an NDA, or they just had to agree not to disclose anything that they saw in
the judge was really trying to keep everything close to the vest. I have never heard of a judge keeping all the case file, every single thing in his office. And you got to sign an NDA as an attorney in order to get your own transcript of the trial. Now, this judge, and he was about to retire in December. I think he's still retiring. And he did not want to walk away from this trial. Instead of being recused, he could have kept his record clean, because I think a recusal is a bad look, in my opinion. But now he has a recusal on his record. But to hear that he was trying to keep all this stuff in his chambers away from the public or away from possibly getting exposed is insane to me.
Record. And Russell Wilson was like, well, how can I agree not to disclose something until I see what it is? And the judge was like, well, if you're not, this is Judge Roach. If you're not going to agree to that, I'm not going to give you the case file. So the case file was still sealed in the judge's office, even after conviction. And the court reporters hadn't even started the transcript. So when Russell Wilson has 30 days from conviction to do this motion for new trial, they have to work with Mike Howard. They have to work with people in the public to get these affidavits, because one, there's no record. And two, they don't know what happened because we don't have a transcript. So they're working blind trying to come up with this document. So they reference that today to say, Judge, we've amended, or we have some additional arguments and some additional things and some corrections because we didn't have the transcript at the time that we prepared our motion. So where Mike Howard in his affidavit said Karmelo only had 10 minutes to make this decision about testifying, turns out it was more close to 30 minutes, a gap. And they know that once they get the transcript. So the transcript, you're trying to recall things after a trial, after months of preparation, days of testimony. You're trying to recall it from your head. So they didn't have everything exactly accurate, but nothing new came out that changed their legal arguments.
I mean, the fact that this judge knew that these attorneys need a roadmap to prepare for whatever they had to do as far as a new trial motion or anything, he would actually sit on the files until. Why would an attorney would agree to that? Like,
exactly, like why, and why was it even being set on? And the problem was that, and what Bill Werski said when it got to be his opening time, is that they did a lot of stuff in this trial that they didn't call it shady, right? They're not going to say that, but they did a lot of things that don't occur in other trials, that you probably never heard about in other trials, because they got so many death threats. They got threats. They had outsiders trying to influence everything. So they held on to this case tight to the vest to try to protect Karmelo, try to save Karmelo, try to save the case. So that is kind of what the state is going to say.
And the prosecution didn't give a damn about Karmelo to be putting now him being the reason of why they had to do things the way that they did. That is crazy.
Come to that argument second, because I was so surprised to hear it. It wasn't any law, but it was all of these excuses as to why they moved in secret and everything that they did with this case. So Russell Wilson goes through their arguments that they're going to make. He also says during his argument, we talked about how the hearings were closed, that Karmelo never, after Karmelo got a bond, which was about 2 weeks after the incident occurred, he got no bond. He got $1 million bond at first, and then a couple weeks later, he came back before a judge, a black female judge, I believe. She was a black female judge. Okay, she came before a black female judge, and she lowered the bond from $1 million to $250,000, and then he bonds out. After that bond out, Karmelo never entered the courthouse for a hearing until trial. Anybody that's been through the criminal justice system know that's some BS, right? Because you got to have a plea and arraignment where you come in and you plead not guilty on the record. You can waive it, but I mean, that's still a court date that you know about, right? So in a murder case, you have several pretrial hearings. You talk about evidence that you want to keep in, evidence that you want to keep out. None of that was done in open court. So
all of it was done behind the scenes in the judge's chambers and without Karmelo present. And that alone should get him a new trial. Come on.
Karmelo never attended anything else, but he had his bond hearing and then he showed up for trial. They issued him into the courthouse in secret one day. Sometime last year, they were doing a buccal swab. So they were taking his saliva to test his DNA for, evidence in the case. But they didn't tell anybody that. They snuck him into an office really quick. They did the swab and then they released him. So I was blown away to hear that. He went from bond to trial because they did everything in secret. All of the pretrial hearings that you would typically have in a case were held in the judge's chambers, no court reporter, sometimes over a phone call, but it was just casual conversation about the case between the judges and the attorneys. They didn't have the defendant there for these type of hearings, which is it feels like a violation of the law because he's supposed to be there.
Yeah, it sounds like a violation of law. It sounds like some good old boy behavior, good old Texas ways of doing things.
To be honest, if we go back, history.
I can't hear him, so we're about to.
When someone got railroaded,
with these sticky numbers on, you know what I'm talking about, then it's on shadow docket. So he says that the court acted under a shadow docket in this case. Now, Bill Worski took great offense to this, and he doesn't, support the term shadow docket. He calls it a paper docket. So back in the day, let me see, I've been practicing now for 20 years. When I first started practicing in 2006, we had paper dockets, right? There was no e-file system. You had to go to the courthouse by 5 o'clock to get your file that day. To get it, you had to go stand in a window. You had to go to the clerk would take it, stamp it, and you always had to show it with 3 copies because you had to get your copy stamped to leave with them. You had to get a copy stamp for the DA's office that you sometimes had to go take to the DA's office, and then you had a copy that you got stamped to give back to yourself. So that was the whole paper docket method, right? You go to the clerk's office and they would turn around and open up a file cabinet and they pull out your file and it'd be numbered with these sticky numbers on, you know what I'm talking about? Then it's on the side of the folder and they pull them out of the drawer and they get your file out and they say, what do you need?
Their version of the Dewey Decimal System.
Right. So that's a paper docket. So that's how things were back in the day. Well, I can't remember the year that it started. 2010, maybe they introduced somewhere around there. They started introducing Tyler and Odyssey, and now we have like Peach Court in Georgia. But Tyler and Odyssey are just kind of standard in every state. It is an e-filing system. Now it's mandatory that you have to e-file filings in a case. Like even when you go down to the courthouse in person, most courthouses will have, major city courthouses will have an e-file room where they have a room of computers, and they will sit you at the computer and show you how to e-file it. They don't take a paper filing anymore. Certain counties on outskirts they do, but e-filing is what they mandate in a lot of cases.
So to me, when you say it's mandated, it's required, that means he done already broke policy. Okay. And then also, and the judge was right there doing it with him, as was the defense attorney, which now his license looks to be in question to me, because what are you doing? What are you doing? So about this e-filing system and him not using it, like he said, this is how they do things. They probably never thought twice about doing things the proper way because they do things how they want to do things. This is how they've been doing it. This reminds me of the whole Mississippi situation with Nolan Wells. Ancestors are working, child. They trying to unravel all this bullshit that's been going on for all these years. It's time for these systems to be exposed and broken up and broken down and replaced. I'm gonna listen to a little bit more of her, but I'm gonna get back to the actual what happened in the trial because I don't have timestamps on her stuff, and this is a long stream.
So that all of the doc is digital, it's electronic, it's on the file, it's on the computer system. So you can log into the Tyler system in Fulton County right now and pull up anyone's case, and you can see the entire docket. When they got a court date coming up, whatever has been filed in that case, you can see it. Well, in this case, they say that, and Bill Worski, when he spoke, talked about how many threats they were getting. The judge that gave a lower bond was doxxed. The person who threatened her filed. The FBI got involved. Like, they have somebody in jail, in custody right now, I believe in Idaho, for threatening this judge. So it was a big viral public case. Everyone was getting death threats. Was getting death threats. His family was getting death threats. They moved one time. So this is why Bill Worski says Judge Roach developed this shadow docket so that the public wouldn't be aware of every time they had a hearing, so they could show up to the courthouse and they could come in and see everything. But that's exactly why the Sixth Amendment exists, because the defendant is supposed to have public hearings.
The judge seemed to be shady without thinking he was being shady at all. We gonna just sneak around because we don't want these problems, when in actuality, your job is to face and deal with these problems. You have a whole team of people there logistically to help you move through this stuff. There's laws in place to help protect as well. But instead, you want to move around with your shadow docket, like the term or not, that's what it is. And also sit on, even after conviction, all the paperwork, because it seems to me more so that you're hiding everything versus protecting. You know what I'm saying? They always want to say we're protecting, when really you're hiding and you're trying to pull something over. That's what this is.
Pretrial hearings, motion hearings, they are supposed to be public. But Judge Roach and the DA and Mike Howard in this case, they were just so concerned. This is what Bill Worski says. They were so concerned with the safety of the defendant. We did all of this to keep everyone safe. And mainly it was Karmelo. We were trying to protect Karmelo. This is what Bill Worski is saying. We acted to make sure that Karmelo survived. And everything we did it for that reason. And Judge, it worked. Look, he survived. Like, that is his justification for them having this shadow docket.
Wow. Okay. I want to move back to the actual court proceeding real quick. I just needed a little break. It's a lot of reading. So they were at lunch, and now Karmelo's defense is up, arguing that his constitutional right to a public trial was violated because access to the proceedings was restricted. Prosecutors are pushing back, saying the restrictions were necessary because of death threats, doxing, and disruptive behavior from some influencers who were trying to gain access to the courtroom. She's giving her take. I don't know if we want her take. It's a lot. Ooh, I don't want to read that yet. She said regarding the ex-girlfriend, let's put her back up. Or the girlfriend. She says ex-girlfriend. She's like, apparently they're still together. She's not his ex, as previously reported. Valeria is at the hearing, sitting front row beside Anthony's parents. When he returned to the courtroom for the afternoon session, Valeria smiled at him. So apparently the prosecutor tried to make it seem like he was, stalking her and that she was trying to get away from him. Their ex, that's her ex, and she had to go complain, but doesn't sound like that's the case based on what's going on today in the courtroom. Or could it be just how victims do, which is typically go back to the guy? Not to say they didn't say nothing about him abusing her, just said he was stalking her, apparently. She said Mike Howard, and that's Karmelo's trial attorney, and Toby Shook are at this motion for a new trial hearing. They're Carmelo Anthony's former lawyers. Toby Shook is getting ready to defend Yella Beezy in his murder for hire trial. He's accused of putting a hit out on Mo 3. Okay. The original defense attorney for Carmelo Anthony, Mike Howard, is testifying during his motion for a new trial and has revealed details about what investigators found in Austin Metcalf's background. All right, let's get into what was going on in Austin Metcalf's background. I think this is that Hunter or Austin? Let me see. I have both. I'll just have to put them both up here. According to the testimony, Metcalf and his brother Hunter were previously caught spray painting graffiti that included KKK Kill All Blacks and Heil Hitler and the N-word. The brothers were sentenced to 12 months of juvenile probation. Records reportedly show they told authorities that. Austin Metcalf reportedly told authorities after he and his brother were arrested for the graffiti, "We did some dumb stuff and we did some vandalism." Carmelo Anthony's a trial attorney also testified that at a previous track meet, another student told Austin Metcalf that someone who wasn't on their team was behind our bench and talking wild. According to the testimony, Austin reportedly responded, "Kill that MF." Please, so the docket diva is saying, please keep in mind there was a gentleman's agreement and both sides agreed to keep character evidence out of the trial because somebody commented, that'd have been useful information to mention before, but they had this agreement in place, right? So Mike Howard, Carmelo Anthony's trial attorney, is testifying during today's hearing on the defense's motion for a new trial and has revealed details from a more than 20-page background report on Austin Metcalf. More than 20 pages, and this is a summary. The report contains allegations of disciplinary incidents involving Metcalf and his brother Hunter, dating back to their childhood and continuing through his high school. The report contains several documented instances involving Austin and racial slurs at school. In 2023, Austin was accused of bullying a Black student in class. In 2018, while in elementary school, Austin and his brother were accused of bullying and assaulting a female student. The incident resulted in Austin's arrest. During a 2024 argument with another female student, Austin allegedly knocked her to the ground and punched her in the stomach. And that's in quotes. The report also details an incident at a football game in which Austin was kicked out. He later texted someone that he was, quote, about to beat the expletive out of those kids, end quote. School disciplinary records from April 2022 through May 2024 reportedly document multiple instances in which Austin called a teacher the B word or used profanity. During the 2023-24 school year, he received 2 in-school suspensions. Real sunshiny day type of kid. According to the records, Austin told a school official that he couldn't control it and he wasn't aware that it was coming out of his mouth. That's in quotes. In 2024, Austin reportedly met with a counselor on at least 5 occasions regarding anger and rage connected to a football game. The report also states that in 2021, Austin was banned from attending basketball games for an entire season after allegedly yelling profanity at a player. He was also suspended after he and another student reportedly discussed bringing a gun to school the following day. Austin Metcalf and his brother Hunter were previously caught spray painting graffiti that included KKK Kill All Blacks and Heil Hitler and the N-word. They were sentenced to 12 months of juvenile probation. Records reportedly show that the brothers told authorities, "We did some dumb stuff and we did some vandalism." At a previous track meet, another student reportedly alerted Austin that someone who was not on their team was behind our bench, in quotes, and talking wild, in quotes. Austin reportedly responded, "Kill that MF," in quotes. I think, was that the Carmelo incident? The background report is being discussed as the defense argues its motion for a new trial. The defense is seeking to have additional information concerning Metcalf's background considered in connection with Anthony's case. Imagine that all that come out the first time. But also, what about the stuff that came out about Karmelo? She said the judge is considering the totality of what happened during the June trial, including what was left out under the gentleman's agreement, to determine whether Karmelo Anthony's rights were violated and whether he should receive a new trial. Prosecutors say Karmelo Anthony's 75-page background report documents what they describe as a years-long pattern of violent and criminal behavior. They plan to submit the report and have it read in court. My thing is, what I've read so far, heard so far about Karmelo Anthony's behavior versus Austin Metcalf's, Karmelo Anthony's, well, from what I remember, was more fantasy versus real life, getting in trouble, arrested, assaulting people. Like, it was more of an energy he had, I think. But it says the report, along with the background report on Austin Metcalf that defense attorneys are currently reading, was compiled using police reports, school records, and information extracted from their cell phones. Yeah, I think his cell phone got him in trouble. Both of them probably. Austin Metcalf, well, Austin's not here, but his brother is never going to have a peaceful night of sleep. It's really his fault this all happened in the first place. If you know, you know. Austin Metcalf was suspended for talking about bringing a GUN to the schoolhouse, suspended for bullying a black kid, and arrested spray painting KKK Kill All Blacks, and for punching a girl in the stomach when he was in elementary school, ? What else happened? Somebody said, nah. Okay. So Karmelo Anthony's trial defense attorney, Mike Howard, is explaining how the defense attorney's gentleman agreement with prosecutors factored into the decision-making around Anthony's testimony. Yeah, because everybody was wondering, why didn't he testify? He definitely should have testified on his own behalf in this situation. So this is apparently what happened. Howard said that the agreement was reached after both sides considered the evidence involving Anthony and Austin Metcalf. The lawyers agreed to try the case based on only what happened under the tent, referring to the Memorial High School team tent where the fatal stabbing occurred. Howard said he did not understand that agreement to exclude Anthony from testifying because Anthony himself was physically under the tent. He said whether Anthony would testify was never explicitly discussed. And that's the problem. It should have been in the docket on the record. Howard testified that throughout the trial, he was 99% certain Anthony would take the stand. The prosecution was reportedly caught off guard when the defense indicated Anthony would testify, with the prosecutors saying they did not believe Anthony was going to take the stand. They really, I just can't believe how they just wanted him to sit silently and watch himself get railroaded, which is essentially what ended up happening. They said that led to a private meeting involving the attorneys and the judge. Howard said the discussion became heated with yelling and cursing. The meeting eventually ended so everyone could cool off, in quotes, because the conversation was no longer productive. Anthony ultimately did not testify in his own defense, and I'm sure wasn't in that meeting either. During the hearing, the defense is also discussing evidence prosecutors had obtained concerning Anthony that says contributed to the original agreement. Among the evidence was a document found on Anthony's laptop containing racist language directed at Black, white, and Mexican people. What? The document was displayed in court for only a few seconds. One section referring to Black people contained a racial slur-filled statement beginning, "Black melon munching, chicken sucking," in quotes. What? The court also heard that the text message Anthony sent to his girlfriend stating that he wanted to poke someone and lick the blood from the blade was sent in October of 2024. Another piece of evidence shown during the trial was a photograph of Anthony shirtless while holding a firearm. The defense is now arguing over the evidence, the gentleman's agreement, and the circumstances surrounding Anthony's decision not to testify affected his ability to present his defense. Wow. It'd be good to actually know what they put on the screen. Sound like they only had it up there for long enough to get a piece of it and not all of it, unless you took a picture, which I'm pretty sure you weren't allowed to do. But she says prosecutor Bill Werski is now questioning Karmelo, his trial attorney, his friend, his colleague, Mike Howard. Werski is challenging Howard over why the defense did not raise these objections during the trial, pointing out that both sides had agreed to the arrangement. He said, "You agreed to this. We were in alignment," Werski told Howard. Now, when has the prosecution and the defense ever been in alignment on a big, high-profile murder case? You're not supposed to be in alignment. That's the whole point of having opposite sides. It's really crazy. Werski asked Howard whether he was satisfied with how the trial went. Howard said the only thing he wished he had handled differently was being more clear during closing arguments about the provocation issue. Werski said he was going to start with the easy stuff and began questioning Howard about the harassment surrounding the case. Werski pointed out that Howard had described the situation as harassment, while Judge Tucker, Black woman judge who lowered Anthony's bond, had received death threats. Howard said he was not aware of the specifics surrounding those threats. Werski also referenced Howard's use of the word hullabaloo and asked whether he remembered how upset the parents of potential witnesses had become. He asked Howard whether he agreed that outside pressure and harassment could be counterproductive for both sides. Howard agreed that both sides were aligned in wanting courtroom safety and in not wanting either side to be harassed or influenced by outside forces. It's like a us against the world thing they have with these small or these little towns, these little pocket southern towns who do things the way they want to do things, the way they've been doing things. Werski pressed Howard, noting that they had discussed these concerns multiple times during the trial and that Howard never objected. He pointed to both security threat and a misinformation threat surrounding the case. Howard said that misinformation threat was by far the most concerning to him. Other than the physical or the actual harming threat, he was more concerned with the misinformation threat. Yes, Justin for Nolan. And release the Epstein files. I agree. But who are you saying is guilty, Wayne? We're not talking about Karmelo, I know. We already know the situation. Yes, please like, share, and subscribe. Now let's continue. Anthony's 6-person defense team is now objecting to nearly every question from Werski, at times interrupting him before he can even finish asking the question. Judge Roach has overruled the defense several times. Judge Roach? I think she means Judge Chitty. His last name is literally Chitty, Chitty. Howard also revealed that the defense struggled to get witnesses to cooperate during the trial. He said some witnesses left for Mexico, while others hid in their homes and avoided being served subpoenas because they did not want to appear in court. I'm waiting to see, she said, what they're objecting to. Okay, she's doing Tupac updates in between. I'm going to do that separate. Back to Karmelo Anthony. More from the current cross-examination of Karmelo Anthony's trial attorney, Mike Howard, by prosecutor Bill Werski, as they debate whether Anthony received a fair trial. Werski pointed to the intense criticism the defense received after the verdict, calling it unprecedented, in his opinion. He summarized social media criticism suggesting people believe the defense attorneys didn't know what they were doing. At one point, defense counsel accused Werski of making faces during questioning. Werski said, "I'm not making faces." The judge says, "Gentlemen." Werski continued pressing Howard about whether certain information being disclosed during the trial would have made things more difficult for the defense. Howard said he was trying to give Anthony the best defense possible and acknowledged that there were things the defense wanted kept out and other things they wanted introduced. The two also sparred over whether Worski was making statements rather than asking questions. Worski, that was a question. Defense, that was a statement. The questioning then turned to whether Anthony should have testified in his own self-defense case. Worski raised the point that having a defendant testify is not always effective, he said. Why would you give up? You are the prosecution. If you think it's something that's not going to help them, wouldn't you just sit back and let them hang themselves? And I hate to even use that term speaking on this matter, but come on. Worski said, actually, Howard said the defense never explicitly characterized Anthony's testimony as either being in or out. He said he never said. He personally did expect that it was going to happen. Apparently, him and Karmelo had prepared for it. Sounds like. But when it came out that if he did indeed testify, they were going to bring out the stuff they hadn't brought out before on him. That's when they decided not to. But my thing is, that was at the end of the trial. How could they go back and do that unless he meant like opening statements? I mean, closing statements, because the trial was done at that point, I think. And the prosecution had rested also. So even though they might have wanted to introduce some new stuff, wouldn't it have been too late? Those are my thoughts. So Worski raised the point. Okay, so he didn't feel it would be effective. Howard said the defense never said either way. Worski said he had intentionally given the defense leeway regarding the character evidence. He pointed to the chess club evidence as something he repeatedly considered. And what is this chess club evidence? Worski said he viewed the chess club information as character evidence rather than bias. Howard said neither side expected that the other to suddenly jump up and say, "Gotcha." He said the expectation was that the attorneys would approach one another if they believed the evidence was getting close to opening the door to character evidence. Worski said he did not recall specifically saying opening the door, but he said he told the defense they had gotten into character. Howard maintained that Worski had said the agreement did not cover Anthony's testifying. He said he told him they got into character when. Worski then argued that without the agreement, the punishment exposure would have looked very different. Howard countered that the agreement also affected the defense, saying they were hamstrung. Howard described the defense performance Anthony ultimately received as partial. So he didn't give him he wasn't able to give him a full defense. Howard acknowledged that there was no way to go back and redo the trial. The defense could have recalled witnesses, he said, but there was no way to recreate the full defense they believed Anthony should have received. This is a damn shame. Howard also revealed that the defense has significant problems getting witnesses to cooperate. He said witnesses were leaving for Mexico, failing to appear, and even hiding inside their homes to avoid being served. Howard said it felt like the rug was pulled out from under us, in quotes. Worski responded, "However you want to cast it," emphasizing that the parties had made an agreement. This is an insane thing that this guy is even testifying to the prosecutor. Howard said Anthony was well prepared to testify and believed he would have come across as very genuine. Worski responded simply, "But he didn't testify because you threatened him." Howard said Anthony did not trust that the door to the excluded information will remain closed. The attorneys also disputed where a heated discussion in front of Anthony occurred. Worski said it happened in chambers. Howard said it happened in the well of the courtroom. Worski argued that the trial was not going well for the defense and that nothing much was going your way. This is what he said. Howard disagreed. He said the defense knew Anthony was the best witness in a self-defense case. Howard acknowledged that Metcalf's friends and teammates portrayed the incident in one way, but he argued that if the jury had heard directly from Anthony and heard the defense's version of events, logical people would understand that Metcalf's friends would naturally portray the situation in his favor. Howard also challenged the testimony of a witness who was in the next tent over and characterized the incident as murder. He said the witness had a limited view of what happened. More from the cross-examination of Karmelo Anthony's trial attorney, Mike Howard, by prosecutor Bill Werski, with the two continuing to clash over the agreement surrounding character evidence and whether Anthony could have testified. And it's a trip that these two, the main ones on stage during the trial, the prosecutor and the defense attorney, are now going back and forth against each other about the procedures that were clearly lacking, in my opinion. It seemed to me his constitutional rights were violated, Karmelo Anthony's. I hope the judge sees it this way and gives him a new trial. Let's just give him a new trial. A lot of people are arguing that if he gets a new trial, it's going to be even a worse verdict. A lot of people are saying he's going to get life if he gets a new trial. But I don't agree. And I think even with a new jury and a more fair jury, that would also help. If anything, not 35 years if there is a conviction. But this ain't it here. Howard said his interpretation of the trial video differed from Werski's. He said the defense was prepared to argue based on what Anthony would have testified to, that Anthony felt surrounded by people from Memorial High School. Howard emphasized that regardless of how either attorney interpreted the video, Anthony had his own perception of what was happening around him. Werski then brought up Anthony allegedly telling his attorneys that Werski runs the courtroom. Howard said it was something like that and explained that Anthony did not feel the trial was fair. So Anthony basically was probably saying some shit up under his breath, or even maybe being bold enough to say it, that, oh, I see what's going on here. Werski runs this courtroom. And that's just what I was saying. Howard has been deferring to Werski and did do so as well during this proceeding. And it's disgusting. Howard needs to be, both of them actually should have their licenses in question here. I think anybody can file a grievance with the Bar Association. I think we need to do a class action grievance against both of these attorneys. Werski asked whether Anthony did not want to be cross-examined by him. The questioning returned to the agreement. Werski asked Howard to acknowledge that once Anthony decided not to testify, the defense followed the argument, including the agreement regarding his mother's testimony during punishment. His mother couldn't testify either? Werski pressed Howard on whether the two attorneys had ever specifically discussed a defendant testifying. Howard agreed they had not. He said once the issue did arise, however, the attorneys worked through it. Werski then asked Howard directly whether he had ever broken his word. He asked, "I'm looking you in the eye right now. Did I lie to you?" Howard said, this is crazy. Howard said he wanted to believe Werski, but he would be lying if he said he had believed Werski had never contemplated Anthony testifying. Howard said he had a difficult time understanding Werski's perspective. Werski acknowledged that he knew better than anyone how constrained the defense had become, and he said he was trying to find, quote, some common ground. Oh, is that right? Howard pushed back, saying Werski was the one who had never contemplated Anthony testifying. Howard said it was difficult for him to believe Werski would look at him, and co-counsel shook in the eye and lied to them. He said he had also respected Prosecutor Mitchell and was not accusing any of them of being liars. Here he is, tap dancing for them again. He is so scared of them. Howard said it was difficult for him to believe Werski. Oh, I said that part. But Howard said he could not ignore how shocked he was by Werski's interpretation of what Howard believed was clear. Howard recalled telling Werski that the defense had opened up character and then remaining silent. So he said you're open up character, but he didn't say in what way. What did I say or do? What did we do to open up character? So that was a threat. Defense counsel objected that Worski was testifying. Worski then asked Howard whether he believed he actually wanted Anthony to testify. Howard answered that he believed Worski wanted Anthony to testify so he could cross-examine him. Worski ultimately acknowledged that he did want Anthony to testify. Worski was waiting for him to testify, he said. Okay, she's giving us some Tupac details. I'm gonna have to come back to her for the Tupac stuff. She said that Keefe D said they played a recording today in court, the rest of that FBI interview about Biggie and Diddy and all that. And she said Diddy and Zip had fell out. Diddy made payments to Zip, but kept the money. But Zip kept the money. Then Biggie was killed 6 months later. Yeah, I'll be doing that in a different live. All right. The Karmelo Anthony hearing has concluded for the day and will reconvene tomorrow at 9. Looks like Keefe D's his trial ended at the same time. So there's a separate detail from the hearing. Prosecutors also referenced a rant about Mexicans that was among the evidence involving Karmelo Anthony. Defense attorney Mike Howard testified that this evidence was covered by the agreement between the prosecution and the defense, while prosecutor Russell Wilson questioned why the agreement was never put in writing. A 2021 text message from Karmelo Anthony discussed violence after he claimed senior students jumped him because he called somebody a bitch. What? Karmelo got jumped? The evidence also included an allegation involving Anthony stalking a girlfriend. Another text Anthony sent to his girlfriend stated, "I'm going to stab someone and lick the blood off the blade." This was in October 2024. Prosecutors also referenced pages and pages of notes found in Apple Notes on Anthony's phone. A black and white photograph showed Anthony holding a GUN while shirtless. Defense attorney Mike Howard testified that the incidents raised in the motions were covered by the agreement between the defense and the prosecution. Prosecutor Russell Wilson questioned why the agreement was never put in writing. So the picture of him with the GUN, they found it in his phone, but that picture somehow leaked after he was arrested and put on house arrest after he got out on bond. That picture somehow was leaked and it was circulating, and who had access to it but the prosecution and even his own attorneys maybe, but that picture wasn't posted by him online. They put that picture out there of him with that GUN. Maybe it was something he did take and it was in his phone. That doesn't mean he was out there putting it out to the world. He's a young teenage boy. That's what they do. I'm pretty sure the Metcalf boys have plenty of pictures of themselves with GUNs as well. Okay, so that was a last note. Okay, I'm making sure I'm not missing nothing. Entered into evidence doesn't mean every detail surrounding it has been proven. When a document, text, or statement is entered into evidence, it means the judge allowed it to become a part of the official court record. This item exists, and it cleared the legal standard for admission. When something is confirmed as authentic, that means the document or message itself is genuine. The document, text, letter, picture, recording, screenshot is real. She says she's reporting that the said piece of evidence is actually in the case file, not something fabricated or pulled from thin air. What may still be unconfirmed in the context, why it was sent, what happened before or after, what the person meant, how the evidence should ultimately be interpreted. She said, I need y'all to understand because this is important. Her job, whether she's digging through court records, reporting from a hearing in real time, or pulling documents directly from the case, is to tell us what is actually in the record. It's not her job to decide what the evidence ultimately proves. The document can be real while the meaning behind it can still be contested. That's what the trial process is for. And that's why it's so important to make sure things are on the record and documented and not kept in a paper file in the judge's office up underneath some books on the floor or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? I did want to play some more of this lady a little bit too. But before we do that, I think we'll move over to Daddy Metcalf.
As a win, that's okay. They have every right to view it as a win. I mean, technically, yes, they got the judge recused. Okay. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Let's see if they're still celebrating tomorrow, because if he's granted a new trial, he could get more years. I have no idea what the defense is going to throw up for their reasons for a new trial. To me, it still doesn't matter. It doesn't change the facts. The facts are the facts. We had 35 witnesses last time. We only had to use 21. We have a video. We have a confession. I don't know where there's this big bombshell thing that's going to change the case. And, you know, if it was that important, it would have came up the first time. So let's just stick to the facts of what happened that day underneath the tent. For me, things like this do not occupy my time or my thoughts. Mm-hmm. My thoughts are on this foundation. I'm looking at going forward. How do I save lives? How do I prevent this from any parent ever feeling this pain? It is the deepest, worst pain any human being could ever live through. How do I prevent it? So I'm going to ask everyone's help. Support Austin Metcalf Foundation. So your kid comes home alive from school.
These people sure know how to grift, don't they? He's talking about, if this stuff was true, why wasn't it brought up the first time? Well, now we're learning why it wasn't brought up the first time, because there was a gentleman's agreement in place and Mike Howard is a bitch. That's why. And now you're pushing your foundation in your son's name to earn grift money off of the situation.
I'm out here to save lives, and I don't care what color your skin is. I judge you by your character, not by the color of your skin. And there's what I want to tell to everybody, and I want to ask this, and I'll ask you. You're either part of the problem in today's world, or you're part of the solution in today's world. What side do you think you're on?
So the friends in the Nolan Wells case went back on Brandon Tatum's show, the Officer Tatum show, again.
Hold on, child. We're not on Nolan Wells right now, but long live Nolan. Okay, let me get back to...
The state, though, disputes this whole thing and says that basically the defense knew about the closure. They didn't raise this argument when the trial was occurring, so they don't get to raise it now. They get into this, and I didn't see at first how it was relevant, but they get into the termination of Mr. Jackson. So remember, I spoke to you all about how the judge brought in Russell Schaefer. He was the public information officer now. Well, the very first public information officer that was put in place when this case first started was a Black man named Derrick Jackson. He basically was the person who designed the Google form that the First Media had to fill out to request entry into the trial. He worked with the judge and the county and the DA's office for the 10 months, about 9 months or so, to get ready for the trial. He was the person that was handling all of that. He got in trouble. So what happened? So they bring him. Okay, let me finish though, because I'm getting off track. I just want to stay in order. All right, so that's Russell Wilson's opening. Yeah, now the state gets up. And the first thing out of Bill Worskey's mouth is every single decision was with the consent of the trial lawyers. That's his first statement. And
first and last. Seemed like that's what he basically is hanging his hat on. And she's basically just kind of getting started still on we already read everything that happened, but I wanted to get some of the things.
It says treat. Thank you so much, sis. Suave YQ7. Somebody says that you would jump up and say another person for blowing a female for blowing vape smoke in Austin's face. Vape smoke. They assaulted her.
Okay.
March 22nd, 25, Austin Heal Hitler and messages. If he did, you had to call his girlfriend. Conversation when I stab somebody, I'm going to lick the blood off the knife. That's what he said. I don't know what their backstory was and what was going on and led that, but there were real text messages. But everything that they were going to use against Karmelo was on his phone. But Austin them had way more stuff to me.
And again, those things that Karmelo was, from what I could tell so far, weren't things he actually did. These were things he was communicating back and forth against between him and his girlfriend, who needs to testify. The girlfriend needs to take the stand and explain this. And Karmelo needs to also take the stand on his own behalf this time, if it's allowed.
Go through it and you all can, be the judge of it. It's coming up, but they had a lot more against them, I feel like, on their side. But the problem with it is, with them being the victim, you have to have a hearing on both sides to determine what all is going to come in. But yeah, so they did actually display the text messages that Bill Worski said existed. They did. They put up the picture with Karmelo with a weapon. They showed that it actually does exist. Now, there was nothing about a school official or a violent history. So when they said it's violent history, they were actually talking about Karmelo's 2 text messages where he talked about getting in a fight. And they say that his parents sent him to some school at LSU, some kind of program that was for wayward youth. But every time they said that, Karmelo's parents, 2 rows in front of me, were like, what? Like that's not it. So I don't know if it was like a football camp or something. They had a different name that, because it's the state's, it's his argument. So he's going to kind of color it to fit his theory.
And I hope that Karmelo's attorney debunks every little thing that he said. If it's not true, they need to be vocal about the debunking of it and be loud about it.
So I don't know what the program was. He couldn't remember the name of it, but Karmelo's parents shook their heads adamantly like that's not true every time he brought that up. So thank you so much, Ayana. Great question. And thank you for the $20 super chat. TKO every time 19 sends a $5 super chat, says, did Howard appear as meek in person as he comes across in print? I don't see how he can fight to defend anyone. He seems subservient to prosecution.
Oh my God, they said
good question and great.
She said exactly what I said. Subservient.
Point. So because it was some times when I kind of felt that way today, where they were asking him, like Bill Worski's asking, do you think I lied to you? Do you really think that I lied to you and didn't want Karmelo to testify? And so instead of saying, hell yeah, I think you lied, because how did you not? He's like, I don't really want to go there all the way, but hindsight, I've been thinking. It's like, come on, Mike, shit, say it. Yes, you got played. Say it. Like, it is some BS. So to your question and what came up on the stand and how Mike Howard was asking, this gentleman's agreement comes up and it blows up when the state says, one, they felt like Mike Howard opened the door on opening when he said that Karmelo was in the chess club. Mike Howard was like, first off, I didn't say he was in the chess club. I said he played chess. Behind, I said he had a job. He gets straight A's. He plays chess. Like, I'm just running down, giving people a brief background of who Karmelo was. And so, the judge instantly said that doesn't open the door, but Bill Worski doubled down and kept saying, you open the door, you open the door, you open the door.
Oh, the chess club thing, he said, is opening the door. But what happened with the chess club to make it something to be something?
And even today, Bill Worski said, I might have been a little heated. I might have been a little hot-headed, because even when the judge saying, no, they didn't, he doubled down on that point. And then he says, oh yeah, and this agreement never covered Carmelo Anthony testifying. And that is the question that was bullshit. And I wrote down in my paper, and Mike Howard kept like straddling the fence. It's like, no, Mike Howard, say it. Tell him it's bullshit. Because if the only evidence that you had against Carmelo that was this extrinsic evidence was some camp he went to and text messages from his phone, how else were you going to get the text messages in? Like, who else were you going to question about the text messages? If he did, you had to call his girlfriend, conversation between girlfriend, and then the other two messages about fights was he was just telling stories about things that happened in the past, right? So who else were you going to get that information through? The agreement said anybody under the tent can testify to the facts and everything that happened under the tent. So if Carmelo's under the tent, the defense took the position of he's covered by the agreement because Carmelo's one of the people under the tent. So when you say you want to try it clean and we can only speak about what was under the tent, he qualifies. And Bill Worski says, no, we never contemplated the defendant testifying. That statement is bullshit because one, you had cell phone messages. How were you going to get them in but through Carmelo testifying and open up character? And then he's a person under the tent. And thirdly, Bill Worski started talking about this mentor of his and how the theory is anytime it's self-defense, the defendant has to testify. You've been practicing longer than Mike Howard. Most self-defense cases, the defendant has to testify. Why didn't you all contemplate Carmelo? Like, it is BS. So I agree with you. Mike Howard, you know, he is like, because he still has to practice with these people. Like, you know, he's got other cases right now. He's got other defendants. He's going to have to come in his courtroom. He's going to have to work with Bill Worski again on the case. Like, it's like he didn't want to go ahead and say that. And during this exchange, we all in the courtroom thought Bill Worski was crying.
That was a conflict. You cannot work. They shouldn't be able to work together then if that's the case. That's a conflict of interest for the client. You can't help me because you're too busy walking on eggshells around this motherfucker. Like, you should be ready to go to war with this bitch. Instead, you having tea with him in the judge's chambers, practically sucking his motherfucking, you know, I'm just saying, like, what is happening? I would have been fired his ass.
Because his point was like, do you really think I didn't want Carmelo to testify? Because Mike Howard's put forth a position that Bill Worski, you know, reneged on the deal. And he's like, and so he asked him twice. And the third time, his voice changes and is shaking. He's like, did you really think I didn't want Carmelo to testify? And everybody looked up. I was like, is he crying? And he's like, hands shaking. He's holding like, so he wasn't crying, but it sounded like it. And he was like, this matters. My reputation matters. Did you really think I didn't want Carmelo to testify? And Mike Howard just is like, I don't know what was in your heart. I just know how everything happened and how it played out. Like, he couldn't go ahead and say it at this point. I'm saying it like, Mike Howard, what are you? We're all like wondering why you entered this deal. You got played. So call him on it. Call him. And he didn't go there. But Bill Worski was he really wanted to make sure that his reputation was intact and in good standing at the end of this hearing. So it really bothered him that Mike Howard thought that, you know, he was playing funny business with this degree. He was very bothered. Like, anybody in the courtroom would tell you, we thought that he was crying. His voice was shaking and everything.
Man, he was putting on a performance. That's acting. Okay. He was just being very performative. And that's what he does. As a lawyer, that's what they do. It's like a stage. They're on stage. They're one of the main actors, one of the main characters. The audience is there. I mean, come on.
Let's see. All right. So, because I want to get to all of the bad stuff about Austin. And I took notes on that. So let me just make sure I covered everything.
We went through all that. Did we?
Okay. So then another part that, you know, came up was Mike was saying that there was discussions about this public trial because, you know, the defense has to show that they didn't waive this argument. So they were asking him, like, did you agree to go along with this? And he's like, you know, there were discussions, but I never waived Carmelo's right to a public trial, and things happened beyond the order. So remember, the order came out, 9 legacy media, 15 family members per side, 27 members for the public. But how that was administered was all by Steve, I think it's Scholler, something like that, the last public information officer that was in place at the trial. He was the one emailing people and actually saying how the judge's order was going to, be managed, how it was going to actually, be put into effect. And so Mike Howard was like, wow, I know the judge issued this amended order. I didn't know, we're in the trial, so I don't have any knowledge of who's actually being kept out. The fact that grandma can't come in because the family isn't getting all 15 seats. They only got 8, once the trial actually started. And he's not, cognizant of the fact, like, they got overflow room for jury selection and took it away for trial. He's like, I can't pay attention to all of that. I'm focused on the trial. So while I may have waived our original decision about the restrictions, I wasn't aware of all of the restrictions. And that's what they're going to try to get into tomorrow with these witnesses that they subpoenaed to that showed up and couldn't get in. That's what all of that testimony is going to go further into tomorrow, so that the defense can show, while, yeah, we went along with things at the trial, there were things that happened that we didn't know about that we couldn't object to. So, Judge, we haven't waived this objection, because they got a really good argument, and they're going to win it if they can show that they didn't waive this objection during the trial. All right, so let's get to the juicy part.
Make sure I got
everything that came out about Austin, because my mouth was on the floor of everything that came out. And when you hear all of it, you're gonna be like, why did you do this agreement again? So let me just go through. Okay, so when they started talking about this, how they handled it, remember I told you there are no filings actually stamped, where there was a motion in limine prepared by the defense to show these are what was the title? Because I wrote down the title of it. It was Anthony's motion in limine regarding the admissibility of pertinent character trait evidence under the ambiguous aggressor rule, and evidence under Texas Code, whatever. And then it's a multiple page document that is then listing what exactly Austin and Hunter they found on them, the dirt that they were able to dig up.
I had to come back for this one.
I know, I saw you jump up as soon as I said it. So they and this is when he talks about how Mike Howard talks about how the gentleman's agreement was joked about, during some of their, because remember I told you it was about 12 of these off the record pretrial hearings. So in the first few, Bill Worski is dropping the idea of this gentleman's agreement, but it's kind of like in a jokey fashion. They're like, why would we agree to that? And then when they get more into the case and they see all the stuff that they have against Karmelo in these text messages and pictures, they're like, oh, well, maybe run that back. Maybe I do want that deal, right? And so they had evidence that they were going to enter or try to enter against Austin and Karmelo. And let me just say, while the state shows that they have these text messages and all of this, and I'm going to go through what Austin and Hunter had, they both still would have had to have evidentiary hearings before the judge for him to determine if these things were going to still come in. So just because these things existed didn't mean they were going to automatically come in against Karmelo or against Austin and Hunter, but they existed. Okay, so this is what all that's about. So so this is some of the stuff. So one thing was, there was a text message that was said, KKK, kill all Black people. No, this is their graffiti. So from the graffiti arrest that Austin and Hunter had, now this is something that happened, I think it was like 2019. It was years ago.
Now, I don't think I've mentioned it was both of them that got arrested. Both of them, typically for all of the stuff, it was both of them. And Hunter is the one that actually started the thing, supposedly, with Karmelo in the first place. He's the surviving twin. But I know he can't sleep at night.
And they were younger when it occurred, and so they didn't go to adult jail because they were under 17 when this occurred. But they spray painted KKK, kill all Black people, heal Hitler, and N-word. And there was, when they first got this evidence, it was just a report of it happening. but they're like, oh, give us the body cam, give us pictures of what actually was done. They asked for it. The state went and got it and gave it to them. So now they have these pictures of the graffiti. The boys.
They said, hi, Hitler. Hi, Hitler.
Hi, Hitler. Oh, okay. I was like, okay, thank you. Okay. And they got arrested for this. And there was somebody else that was there too, was another young man that was with them, Logan. And he drew the picture of a penis and they did all the racial stuff. So when the police come, they're like, Logan's like, look, we did this, but they took it way further with the racial stuff. I didn't have anything to do with the racial stuff. And so that came from Hunter and Austin. And so their parents got involved and mom was like, kind of like, I want them punished so that, we're not coming back in 5 years and they're not, they still being bad kind of thing. And we see what happened. They continue to kind of be menaces. And so that was the first thing they talked about. Austin messaged about killing. Oh, okay. So there was a text exchange where somebody was telling Austin that some people were at another track meet or something. Tell them about, and a student behind them was sitting behind them in the bleachers. And I guess they were talking junk about him, whatever. And Austin texted, you should kill that MF. Austin and Hunter received 12 months of probation from the graffiti. Let me see who else. Logan, the guy who was spray painting with them. So fast forward a few years later, Logan says to one of them in a text, one Edgar behind on the bench was talking wild. So Edgar is a slur for a Hispanic boy. I've never heard that before. And so Austin then says, that's what that kill that MF is too. So basically, this Hispanic boy was sitting behind them talking junk on the bleacher, and then Austin's response was kill that. So it's similar to the Karmelo Anthony situation, right? Because they said Karmelo Anthony was talking junk, making statements about them or something, and so they felt offended, and so that's or under the tent, so they feel like they have to do something. So they were going to try to get that in to show a correlation between the Karmelo Anthony case. There was another incident when Hunter messaged about jumping kids from Independence, another school track team, at a prior meet. Hunter said that these shitty indie kids talking, Hunter says, let's jump them. So it's like whenever somebody's talking mess or they feel like somebody's doing something to disrespect them, they want to jump them. They want to fight them.
That right there. That has been the conversation throughout the trial, that there were both the brothers around Karmelo.
Mm-hmm.
And it does appear, based on these text messages, that they're locked up on dealing with whatever issues they have with anyone.
Mm-hmm.
They got caught doing racist graffiti.
Mm-hmm.
They allegedly collaborated on other incidents.
Mm-hmm.
And this only proves that when the father said what he said post conviction, the kids got it from either him or his mother. And I haven't heard the mother speak like that. So so the apple don't fall too far from the tree.
Not at all. And I got some more, and it gets worse. So April 1st, 25, the day before this incident, Hunter is actually banned from classroom because he kept kicking the door and the teacher got mad. Hunter says, no, I'm not talking to her. F that weak ass teacher. So they don't respect authority at all. March 22nd, 25, Austin and other shot putter throwers, they got in trouble for leaving early. We heard about this during the trial, right? Remember, if you don't recall, Austin had actually been kicked off the track team by the coach on March 22nd, 2025, because he got upset that all the shot putters did their shot putting throws, and then they left. They didn't stay around for the rest of the team to finish the track meet, so they weren't showing, brotherhood. So he kicked them off the track team. Well, they were just reinstated literally the day that this incident occurred, the day before. So he tells them, and that's why the coach sent Austin that message that morning that says, I need you to be a leader. I got to go, help run the track meet. So come set up early, help.
Yeah, because apparently the coach, whichever coach it was, reversed the decision. Like, he wouldn't have been there had that stayed in place.
Set up the tent. I need you boys to be a leader. He was trying to, so he says the suspension was scared them. And then he was bringing them back in to teach them leadership and all of that kind of crap the day that this incident occurred. So there's a lot of things going on this day, right? Because we had the state, remember, told us Karmelo got broken up with. He's going through this little thing with his girlfriend. So he's got all his aggression and stuff. Austin was kicked off the team. The coach is trying to bring him back in, but it's put him in charge. Get there early, set up the tent, man the tent. So he feels like he's in charge. So it was just, it's just all of this stuff is going on, both of them, the day that this occurs. Let me see. They said on Austin's phone, they found that he followed 300 different fight-relate channel accounts.
What?
300 accounts that he follows on his Instagram are about fights. So, like, fighting, all of this stuff, this is part of his life, part of his nature.
And that's the thing. Then they want to paint Karmelo as the one who wants to fight, who's looking to fight, when it's really his client, and he knows that, or his, the guy.
February 3rd, 2025, Austin used the N-word and said F Edwin Para. And Hunter said, we have 2 N-words. You want to punt? So if you all recall from the trial, Edwin Para is the individual that Karmelo Anthony went under the tent to talk to, right? This is somebody he knew, and
also the girlfriend's cousin, supposedly.
Had hung out with in the past. It was his girlfriend's like cousin or friend or play cousin or something like that. And so to hear that 2 months before this happened, and at the trial, Edwin Parra tried to act like he didn't know Karmelo Anthony, right? They tried to like take the side of Austin and Hunter, and he acted like, oh, I know of him, but we ain't all that cool. And the defense attorney had to pull up all of these pictures at the grandmama's house with them, playing like boys and sitting next to each other and smiling in the picture and all of that stuff, right? Because Edwin tried to downplay it. And to know that February 3rd, the people that you're trying to protect, and a lot of you don't know Karmelo, they were talking about you and calling you the N-word. Like, this is how they thought about you when you run around. They're like, oh, we got 2 N-words. You wanna punt? What does that mean? You're gonna kick him? Like, ridiculous.
I think that's the wrong.
What else? Oh, it gets worse. They went all the way up to like number 37 or 38 of the acts that they had against Austin. Edwin Parra turned his back on Melo and acted like he didn't know Karmelo Anthony. But did he know, what they were saying about him? Number 8 was Austin was using the N-word on April 1st, 25. October 23rd, Austin bullied Tehran, a Black student in class, and used racial slurs, and says the coach wasn't going to do anything because he was a varsity starter. So they've been getting away with their actions for a very long time. And it came up that Austin and Hunter used the N-word a lot. And Mike Howard says, and it wasn't always, the playful N-word with the A. They used the hard R a lot of times. That's what was testified to. Hunter threatened to hit cheerleaders, and the cheerleaders saying that they are scared of Hunter and Austin. And that was that whole email conversation that came up during the trial, that they parents of the cheerleaders were emailing the school telling them that Hunter and Austin were bullying the cheerleaders. They were out at at an eatery or something all together, probably after a game that you do in college. Everybody goes somewhere after the game, and Hunter called one of the cheerleaders a fat bitch. Hunter put on, he was put on a stay away plan from another student, a Black student in school. So he was having issues with this student. Yeah.
At this point, he should have been kicked out. I mean, come on. That is crazy. And with regard to the girl, supposedly he was pissed because they had lost the game, and she had said something. She made a smart remark he overheard and started just going in on her. But he had definite anger issues. beyond therapy. Like he needs to be going somewhere. Actually, Hunter, the one that survived, he needs to get help to this because he might still do something to somebody.
He was messing with this student. They put him on a stay away plan at school. 2018, May, Austin, who was 10 at the time, and Hunter, they were arrested for assault on a female student. The female student mistakenly touched Austin's face, and they both pushed her down forcefully.
Mm.
So this is at 10 years old, and this incident occurred at what, 17, 18? So it's so many things in between, like it just, the behavior escalated. May 7th, 24, Austin and Hunter assaulted another person for blowing, a female for blowing vape smoke in Austin's face. Vape smoke. They assaulted her. Austin and Hunter kicked out of a football game for wanting to beat up kids, said the kids were talking crazy. They always feel like they got to check somebody that's talking crazy. That seemed to be a theme of their actions.
Hey, love.
And now I'm like on number 17. And so it goes all the way to 30 of the different things. A teacher reported that Austin lacked control and gains attention by misbehaving. This is about Hunter. Hunter was released from special ed. So he was in special education and is released from special education due to behavior. Like, that's wild. Hunter was suspended twice from school for profanity to teachers and posturing to fight, called teacher a fat ass, bitch. Hunter school.
I know you got a few more to read, but are we to believe that Hunter walked up
Dude, shut up.
on Karmelo with niceties? Do we believe that?
No.
One who walked up to him with niceties?
If they're pushing people who put vape smoke in their face by accident, I can't. If somebody's telling Karmelo to leave for 15 times, you're not coming in there like, oh, I'm not going to fight you here. Why would I fight you at a track meet? Why wouldn't you? You're fighting in school. You're wanting to beat up people that talk junk at football games, basketball games. You can put out a football game in high school. Like, what? Austin had 7 suspensions from April 22nd to April of 22 to May of 24. He was suspended 7 times from school.
Wow.
Austin got suspended from school after talking about bringing a gun to school. Austin was banned from basketball games for an entire season. Austin told a church group on December 9th, 24, that he was consumed by anger, lust, and addiction. He had a history of wanting to fight. The video of Austin filming, so now they get to videos that are on his phone. So they didn't have proof that any of these videos were ever sent out, but these are videos that Austin took of himself doing things, and they were just saved on his phone. So when they did a phone dump, they discovered these.
I knew it.
Video of Austin filming a black student. After the student says stop, he hits the student in the face. This is on the recording. March 21st, 22nd, Austin has a video of him throwing a water bottle at a black kid. Austin films a black kid eating a banana in a locker room. Like, just messing with minorities, just messing with a lot of the black kids. A lot of these videos.
Racist
Austin videoed himself slapping a black kid on the head. Okay, I wrote too fast on that one. It's a video of Austin fist fighting someone. So the fighting, the aggression, the anger, there was a video that showed him chasing, Austin was cheering on someone else who was chasing a black kid around the house. That was a video that was on his phone.
What?
There was also a video of Austin.
You want all this coming into a juror to hear this. You want that.
Man.
You forget that what, I'm not saying forget what Karmelo said, but you want the jurors to hear all this.
And the last one you're gonna hear, because Karmelo knew about it. So I'm gonna get to that one. I forgot I had more, but I'm on number 40. There was so many things about them. So this is number 40. There was a video of Austin saying, "I'm gonna slap the shit out of Patrick, whoever that is," and then he slaps him. And he says, "I'm gonna slap the shit out of Christian," and slaps him. Some other kids that he just is, doing violence to. He's yelling that he's gonna. They had a video of him yelling February 5th, 23. Austin yelling, "I'm going to slap the shit out of my dad, and he's not going to do anything about it." That's what he's screaming on this video. Right?
Did he do it?
So his parents couldn't even control. They had videos of Austin using the N-word, calling his dad the N-word.
Oh, my
holding
God.
a butterfly knife, saying, "Come fuck with me now." Now, this is one that Karmelo Anthony was going to testify to. If Karmelo testified, he was going to testify that he saw one of them, and they're identical twins, so he doesn't know which one. He saw Austin or Hunter get into a fight with a kid that he knew, and he also knew from this fight, because people are talking, that he was an aggressive person and he likes to start fights. So Karmelo had witnessed violence from one of the twins prior to. So if he had an opportunity to testify, he would have testified this, and this would have went to his mind state, his state of mind at the time of the incident. He knows the whole time that he is being approached by both of them, because they're both there. He just doesn't know which one was fighting at the gym, but they're identical twins, that they're aggressive, that he's seen them pick fights with people. He knows these prior difficulties. He should have testified. Mike Howard should have never entered into this gentleman's agreement. So while I'm telling you the bad things that came out, Karmelo, there was a text message between him and his girlfriend. I don't know what the context of it was, right? But these are actual things that are happening to strangers. They're terrorizing teachers. They're terrorizing the cheerleaders. They're terrorizing other students. Multiple videos of them doing things to black kids, different black kids. So this shows that they're bullies, that they have the racist graffiti arrest. Like, it never stopped. So I don't know if I'm Mike Howard. What do y'all say, chat? Put a 1 in the chat if you get that deal and you're like, hell no, I ain't taking that. Or put a 2 in the chat when you're like, I don't know. Carmelo's saying he's gonna stab somebody and lick the blood off the knife.
Yeah, I mean, what do y'all think?
I'm taking a deal. I don't know. After I hear all this stuff,
gentleman's agreement,
I'm taking it. And then too, in the trial, so let's say you do take the deal, you're going forth. You get to the point where they try to tell you Carmelo's not covered. If he gets on the stand, all of that stuff is coming in about him. The problem was Mike Howard's turn is over. He can't now go try to bring this stuff in against Austin. So now I'm bootstrapped. Now what do I do? Right? He should have never agreed to this in the first place. Right. They said even when they brought this deal to the judge said, "What? Well, that's unusual. How are y'all gonna make that happen?" Even the judge had questions like, "How are y'all gonna do this deal?" And they were like, "Oh, well, judge, it's based on good faith. That a gentleman's agreement. We handshake, so we're on the same page." Even the judge questioned it from the beginning, and that's how it broke down. So when they get into the argument, trial's going on, and Mike Howard testified about this on the stand. He says, "This is what Saturday's coming up. The state's getting ready to rest." And they're talking in the hallway, like they're asking Mr. Worski, how many more witnesses you got? Because they're trying to time it, because Judge Roach wasn't playing. He wanted this trial to run back to back to back so it could get done. That's why he brought people in on a Saturday. So they're having this conversation, and they say at this point, "Oh, okay, well, some of our witnesses aren't available on Saturday, so y'all are gonna throw us off, right? So we might have to bring up our client earlier out of order." Mike Howard doesn't say, Bill Worski this time doesn't say anything. So Mike Howard says, "Come Monday." They're asking. So now it's the defense case, because they started on Saturday. So it's Monday. So they're saying they're in the hallway, and they make the comment about Karmelo Anthony getting ready to testify. And Toby Shook comes over to Mike Howard and says, "Yeah, Bill Worski just said to me that he thinks you opened the door by mentioning the chess playing on the opening." He's like, "Well, why is he just now saying something? Like, opening was 4 days ago, last week. Why isn't he saying something?" So Mike Howard today testified that as they developed this agreement, because Russell Wilson asked him, "What was the plan how were y'all going to keep each other in check? What was the plan to implement this agreement and carry it out?" Mike Howard says, "Well, what we said was if either party ended up getting if either party got too close to the edge or crossed the line or was getting ready to cross the line, we pull each other coattails and we would say, hey, you're skirting the line there. You're getting too close. Come back. And so that way we would keep each
That was
other.
foolish for the defense attorney to do that. That was foolish. You leave the chance your client's life on a honor system.
Yeah.
What
Good
type
faith.
of right good faith system? This is a murder trial.
Right. Oral, not written down.
Right, and then I don't recall covering a murder trial where pre-trial hearings the defendant wasn't in the courtroom. I don't recall that. I'm trying to think of cases where, because each phase in the pre-trial is important for the defendant to participate.
Yes, he's legally required to be there. And if you're going to waive it, judges make you put that waiver on the record. But they didn't have a record in this place because it was all off the record. Because Bill Works, he said, that's how they do things in Texas. Dennis, he said, that's how they do stuff out here.
No. And on that note, I'm going to end this, but I read pretty much what happened throughout the whole trial prior to watching the Fit Lawyer ATL on YouTube. And I guess that's Dennis Byron with her, but this is her channel. Support her, okay? 20 years of lawyering under her belt. And yeah, I just found her today. So I'm subscribed now, and she got all the goods on what's going on this trial. So we just sit here and talk about it, though. You know, I feel like he has a good chance of getting a new trial. I do. I want everybody to even keep that frame of mind too. Instead of being sour about, you know, how we kind of already know what the system is doing, things like that. You got to combat that with the positivity. You got to kind of trick yourself delusionally into a miracle. You got to really believe that he's going to overcome this and be home with his family and doing the things and even more things than he had even thought he was going to do before this all happened. We got to believe that there is a new bright tomorrow for this young man, okay? Because this young man, like Nolan Wells, but unfortunately Nolan Wells is no longer here, but they represent more than just themselves here. You got to know that. You got to know it. So Love Queen had brought up the fact that he has seizures, and yeah, isn't he epileptic? I think it is pronounced epileptic. And he's like what, 165, 6-ish, smaller guy. Those Metcalf boys are big guys, 200 something pounders, over 6 feet, you know, and they're bullies, as we heard. She had 40 some things on the list of the things that they had done. And a lot of that stuff was criminal behavior. Arrested at 10 years old? What were these parents doing? Or this father? I mean, what happened? Whatever happened got Austin where he's at. That's what I've really concluded after hearing all that. And yeah, I don't know what Karmelo was thinking of what he was saying about that stuff, but he was a teenager, and teenagers say and do weird shit all the time. He wasn't something he put out. It was conversations, a couple text messages between his girlfriend and his parents said they lied about the special school for the anger. He was a good student. He had a good GPA. You know, he was MVP in a couple of sports. Girlfriend, long time. There's lots of pictures of them. She's still supposed to be with them. Lied about that. I think they just get away with lying in the courtroom, thinking they're protected because they have relationships with each other, the judge and the prosecutor. But not today. Don't look like. Hopefully not. Hopefully. I don't want to get too cocky about it, but I do just remember to keep the light bright. Okay. Love Queen said they should have been on the terrorist list and the parents charged. Okay. That's some hardcore stuff I was listening to for some really young kids at that. That to me says when they become of age, if they make it, they're going to really be terrorizing the streets. Imagine the crimes being committed by as grown men. And now Hunter, who's on the loose, Because Hunter sounds like he's worse. You know, Austin was bad too. They were both horrible. Somebody needs to keep their eye on Hunter and anybody he's around in close proximity to, especially without a lot of people around. It's isolated. You don't want to be walking in a dark alley. One of the Metcalf boys. Well, I guess the Metcalf boy, because there's only one now. Hunter. Don't want to be walking in a dark alley around Hunter, especially as a woman. I can't even imagine. They don't have a care in the world about any authority. They didn't, I'll say, let anybody keep them from bullying. It looks like even the teachers, fuck you, bitch. The girls, the cheerleaders, yeah, fat bitch. Everything, the bullying black kids, nigger. You're bullying black kids for no reason. Embarrassing them, throwing water on them and stuff, and probably slapping them in the face with ham sandwiches. All that old frat boy behavior. And guess what? Met the wrong one, baby. Met the wrong one. And it was bound to happen. If it wasn't Karmelo, it was going to be somebody. And they better be glad it wasn't both of them. From what I'm hearing, you best be glad it wasn't both of them. Hunter got a lesson. You needs to walk straight and narrow at this point and understand that what you was doing was wrong, man. That's the wrong way to roll. She said Hunter is a loose cannon and a whole problem. Hunter and his daddy are going to meet their match. Yeah, I had played the daddy a little earlier, so if you ever go into the replay, he was talking crap yesterday after they got the new judge. But yeah, catch that, T, child. I'm a peace out. Shout out to everybody in the replay. Let me know you stop by in the comments. And let me just make sure. Yeah, I'm just going to catch up on what happened with today's Keefe D trial, child, because that in itself is a whole other show. Okay. Catch up on that and probably come back with that early in the morning on my little coffee break or tea or whatever. He says someone is going to make a few examples out of Hunter. Hunter, he ain't sleeping nights, just like Warren. Just like, isn't that his name? Warren, Nolan's fake friend, looking like Skeletor. All the stress. These guys aren't sleeping at night. They're not eating, not taking care of themselves. Just so paranoid and worried about what everybody's saying. All the chatter is driving them crazy. Thank you, Love Queen. Appreciate you. You got to come on soon again. But yeah, y'all, love and peace and love. Till next time, bye.
It's the $1 Trillion Goddess, baby.